Welcome to a quick day of release guide for the boss fights in While Guthix Sleeps. Realistically, the three bosses are really the first mage boss you fight about halfway through, then the final boss fight, and the tormented demons you face right afterwards. For the first boss fight, you cannot use any powered staves, and you have to use magic because he protects from everything else. As for gear to bring, you basically want to use your best elemental spell that you have available. Most people doing this quest, it's probably going to be Fire Surge, so just go ahead and use that. You can use the runes for all of the elemental spells in this boss fight if you want to avoid all damage. Realistically, the chip damage is pretty minimal, so I wouldn't recommend it. You have good enough gear and high enough level with some decent food, you'll be just fine in this boss fight. As for a few other mechanics, you can bring runes to entangle the suicide bombers, and we'll touch on that in a minute. And then lastly, there is a bomb that gets thrown out into the middle of the arena, and the only current mechanic known in order to prevent the massive 40 damage you'll see me take in this boss fight is to one telegrab the bomb and then high alch it in your inventory. So if that is a mechanic you want to avoid, it does deal about 30 to 40 damage when it blows up, and outside of that mechanic it does seem to be unavoidable. You can bring runes to telegrab and high alch along with entangle. Other than that, let's go ahead and jump into the boss fight. Protect for mage and throw on your best elemental spell and attack the boss. Here's the mechanic right here where you would use the opposite of Wind Surge in order to destroy this. But as you can tell, it only hit me a 4, so realistically it's not that big of a problem. You will get chip damage through prayer as well. Here is the suicide bomber. This is the person you would entangle. Otherwise, you'll see me try to run around the room to avoid getting blown up, but eventually he will catch me here shortly. When he does catch you, he entangles you in a little box that you can't escape from, right here. And I'll get hit a 34 when he suicide blows up. Here is the lit explosive. You can see I try to cast Surge on it. The best way is to telegrab and then high alch it. It did hit me a 43. And I tried both other mechanics of running away and hiding behind something or picking it up. Neither of those do anything, it looks like, at first. But overall, this boss fight isn't very difficult at a high level. Just protect from mage. Here are the other spells you would cast the opposite of to get rid of. But you'll see they only do a little bit of chip damage. Just 3s and 4s, nothing too big. But other than those couple mechanics, there's nothing else to really worry about in this fight. Just keep DPSing. Keep your HP up so you don't accidentally get KO'd by a suicide bomber. And you shouldn't have any trouble. Now it's time for the final boss fight. We're going to have 2 boss fights back to back with the final fight into the Tormented Demons. Make sure you do have the Sapphire Necklace along with a way to get to the game's necklace for Tears of Guthix to get back to where we were. Once you have the Sapphire Necklace and all 3 combat styles being melee, range, and mage for the final boss fight, here is the current gear setup and inventory I'm going with. And now that we've made it back to the statue, make your way through where the door was originally at, down here to the south. And when you get close, a cutscene should occur to start the final boss. When he's orange on top, he'll be using range. Obviously, you can see that by the big bow. and he just switched to blue. That means he's on magic. Correctly protecting on your protection prayers is pretty important for this final boss fight. He absolutely rinses you off prayer. White is melee. And for the first part of the fight, just continue switching your prayers. It's pretty simple. You see him change colors relatively easily. As the boss fight gets on and it gets later, he'll start using protection prayers himself, all the way to the point where his attack styles get sped up dramatically at the end. And he also protects from 2 different combat styles at the same time. His protection prayers just finally started popping up. Here's where he starts protecting from 2 different prayers at the exact same time. I was so concentrated on watching it, I didn't even pay attention to what he was actually praying against. You do want to focus on not taking damage because he smites you for whatever he hits you. That is an important mechanic to remember. For this stage of the fight, you use whatever combat style he's attacking you with. He just switches it on a pretty constant basis, so make sure you always pay attention. But you are using whatever style he's hitting you with back. Just a couple more hits. And that should do it. Almost. No, it didn't. He refuses to die. There we go. And now it's time to fight the Tormented Demons. Go ahead and attack whichever one is attacking you. That appears to be the ranged attack. A 70. Keep your distance a little bit for that projectile right there where he throws down the flames. A 67 blowpipe heal. Blowpipe should be very effective against killing these. Spam click away from that tile. As soon as you see the little mechanic where he's throwing fireballs down. And one more hit should do it.